defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
This is what it looks like when, in the rare event, the United States votes in a populist president, and that president begins the uphill battle of mending the fabric of the U.S. Constitution, torn apart by puppets installed by an embedded foreign globalist system.
Would you ever have Donald Trump on your show?
No.
What if he asked you?
No.
What about Melania? Would you have her on your show?
Melania? What, to talk about what? She can barely speak English.
Of course, the brainwashing, social engineering media minions have their claws so deeply dug into the psychological soil of the nation that the legalized propaganda quietly enacted in 2013 under President Obama will not stop. No matter how diligently the Trump administration refutes the lamestream media's alternative facts.
You know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth. And they sort of made it sound like I had a feud with the intelligence community. And I just want to let you know, the reason you're number one stop, it is exactly the opposite. Exactly. And they understand that too.
Think how dumb they think you are. To show the gates when they open at 8:30 and people just start pouring in, because they don't want to show nobody, because people know that would be a lie. So you see them all pouring in. They don't show you hours later when it's the biggest crowd ever.
CNN actually put out this gigapixel photograph of the inauguration. They debunked themselves on that crowd size. You can go to it and see how huge the crowd was.
Or they say, yeah, he took out the Martin Luther King bus, and the whole media runs with it. And it's just ongoing.
We had a tweet go out about Martin Luther King. Think about how racially charged that is. And someone rushes out and says to the entire press corps that the President of the United States has removed the bust from his office. Think about what this signal... Hold on, please.
An apologize.
No, he actually apprised to, quote, my colleagues. That's the exact quote. Okay? That quote, that report got tweeted out around. And to report, where was the apology to the President of the United States? Where was the apology to millions of people who read that and thought how racially insensitive that was?
But the first time he confronts the public, it's a falsehood?
Chuck, if we're going to keep referring to our press secretary in those types of terms, I think that we're going to have to rethink our relationship here. But look what happened the day before, talking about falsehoods. We allow the press in, and what happens almost immediately? A falsehood is told about removing the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office. That's just flat out false.
If it wasn't obvious before, it has to be now. Any rational American can plainly see President Donald J. Trump has hit the ground running into his first 100 days and already has a 57% approval rating according to Rasmussen polls, compared to the king of the snowflakes and the fascist and racist left's Barack Obama, who after 8 years of unyieldingly wounding the republic had an average approval rating of 47.9%, according to a Gallup poll.
We have to accept that there is prejudice that exists within our own party, and we have to be able to have that conversation. And my job is to shut other white people down when they want to interrupt. My job is to shut other white people down when they want to say, oh no, I'm not prejudiced. I'm a Democrat. I'm accepting. My job is to make sure that they get that they have privilege. And until we shut our mouths and we listen to those people who don't, and we lift our people up so that we all have equity in this country.
As CNS News reports, that puts him behind Richard Nixon, who resigned, and George W. Bush, who saw his approval rating drop as low as 25% near the end of his term. When the history books are written, the only change former President Barack Obama brought was a growth of the awareness to the bulk of the American people that the system and the talking heads protecting that system are far more corrupt and desperate than we initially realized. John Bound for Infowars.com.
They're intentionally leaving the borders open in Europe, bringing in mass refugees. Among them are going to be jihadists who are setting up a future Tet offensive, Tet-style offensive in Europe. And the same thing's being done to this country.
On her way to work one morning, down the path along the lake, a tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. "Oh, well," she cried, "I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you. Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. "Take me in, O tender woman. Take me in, for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. Now she clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in, by now you might have died." She stroked his pretty skin, and then she kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying thank you, that snake gave her a vicious bite. "I saved you," cried the woman, "and you've bit me, heavens why. You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'm going to die." "Oh, shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in."
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering what's happening in this country, it is simply the return of America. The globalists had a bold plan to hijack every sovereign nation on earth and then basically steal their resources for a planned world government, a very oppressive planned world government. They were so arrogant, they wrote white papers, they gave speeches, they wrote books about it. And so myself and many others in the last few decades went and compiled those articles, those speeches, and those interviews from television, C-SPAN, you name it, and showed the world and made films and wrote our own books and built our own media. They just sat there arrogantly laughing at us over and over again when we had the facts, we had the culture. And now they're not laughing anymore, are they? No, they're screaming for blood. They're screaming for civil war. They're screaming for death. Let's go to drudgereport.com that I've got here on screen today, because Drudge just always has the perfect way to put it all down so simply, but also in a complex way. Dow Jones roars past 20,000. That's $1.3 trillion in since he was elected November 8th. Let's look down, though, in the left-hand corner. Peter Thiel, 1 foot out of the USA, wealthy Americans fear impending civil war, evacuating to New Zealand. I've been telling people that for 8 years. Now it's all admitted. But let me tell you where else they're going. They're going to Kauai, the most westerly and most northerly Hawaiian island, one of the most remote. It's where they filmed Jurassic Park and King Kong. And Zuckerberg is suing hundreds of Hawaiians trying to take their land. Isn't that just cute, to build his giant mansion? Hawaiians call Mark Zuckerberg the face of neocolonialism over land lawsuits. But notice, he's the one screaming Black Lives Matter and funding it and pushing the race war, while he himself, just like the UN does, goes in and takes people's property. That's how they operate. And believe me, he's building an armored fortress out in San Francisco around his house. That's admitted. He wants walls. You know, I want to put a meme out. I mean, we did this last year and Trump picked up on it and others did, but where we show the Great Wall of China, we say it's okay for them to have one, not racist. And then right next to it, we have Mexico's border fence and wall. Mexico, not racist, not a problem. And then we can also show, again, many other walls that other governments and other groups have, like the Vatican. Some of their walls are 200 feet tall. The average is about 50 feet. I've been there. And then next to it show the little spindly fences we've got in a few spots and say, racist. Again, it's the total mind control of this. And that's just Zuckerberg building his wall out in Kauai. That's nothing on his 700 acres. Well, he's trying to grab more. He's got a big wall in San Francisco and is buying up all the surrounding neighborhood to bulldoze it and turn it into his own compound. And we get the fact you want privacy and you want a wall, bro. But then you've got armed security. You've got the best there is, but you don't want us to be able to own guns, just like Hillary and Michael Moore. You're hypocrites. You're elitists. You're dirtbags. You know, I was thinking this morning about a place where I have dropped the ball, and that is chronicling how much in just 5 days Trump has delivered. And even with his actions acting as president-elect, he did more than Obama ever did, because Obama was a globalist trying to suppress us. Trump is simply removing all the illegal garbage. Why can Trump just suddenly say we're not turning off any more coal power plants? Why can he just suddenly say we're pulled out of TPP? Why can he just suddenly do all these things? Because under executive action, all this unconstitutional garbage was done. So he can just remove it. But here's the key. Upon removing all of this onerous tyranny, Trump is not then dictating it as a stick over the heads of the elites. He's returning it to the Congress and to the people. Look at TPP. He could have taken that whole agreement, kept it secret, done whatever he wanted, quote, for his interest. No, he just said, it's gone. It was secret over 10 years. Hillary basically helped create it with Goldman Sachs. We're throwing the whole thing away. It was illegally brought in. It was being enforced by Obama outside of law. Congress didn't pass it. It's gone. We withdraw from the TPP because Obama had already put us into it. That was what, day 2 he did that. And he passed the critical test. He devolved the power, which is what's needed, back to the states and back to the people. And the howls of anger only intensified up into the sky. It's just unprecedented. And then notice that something they snuck by Reagan. I don't blame Reagan for this because he didn't really have a hand in it, but it happened on Reagan's watch, so I guess he gets the blame, so do the Democrats. But in, 1983, the Vaccine Damage Fund, which I guess Reagan thought, oh, we're going to pay for the kids that get hurt by bad vaccines. No, the law made it secret what happens to you, makes you go into a secret federal court, very hard to ever even get the vaccine damage money, and it's taxpayer money, over $1 billion a year, that's put in the fund to pay for what the vaccine makers do. Now, if somebody's above the law and can't get in trouble and there's a secret court, do you think they're going to make better vaccines or worse vaccines? Because I'm not arguing that there isn't a science that you can take some type of pathogen that's been attenuated, that's been neutralized, and that your body then still learns that it's an outside enemy and creates antibodies for it. But that's your body going to war, and you do that too much, it causes problems. It causes shock. It causes blood on the brain. It causes the equivalent of your baby getting stung by 100 bees. That's all that's happening when your baby goes into convulsions and is drooling a few hours after it gets all those vaccines, is it's having an allergic reaction. And I've had hundreds of medical doctors on, hundreds over the years breaking this down, but you can read the insert. It says it can cause these shocks and cause seizures and then cause permanent epilepsy or narcolepsy or cause type 1 diabetes because it burns out your pancreatitis. It says it on the inserts. We've shown them to you hundreds of times here. Every year when kids are getting ready to go to school, Dell Hospital here in Austin is full of children who suddenly can't process sugar, who suddenly can't produce insulin, who suddenly don't have a pancreas. And every time it's the vaccine, they go, oh, type 1, suddenly the genetic form is way up. Well, yeah, because it's being destroyed. It says on the insert of the MMR shot and the flu shot and all the rest of them that it causes pancreatitis, and then right under that it says diabetes, 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 diabetes. It hits your brain, it hits your pancreas, big time. You have big autoimmune responses in them, and a lot of times it burns them out, and your kid never comes back. Now, Barron is a very smart young man, and he's doing great. And a lot of people bounce back from damage from vaccines. But the word is, Barron got hurt when he was little with vaccines. See, this is a learning experience for Trump as well. And I'm not going to get into their private family business. They've said, leave their kids alone, and I've done that. But the point is that you notice Trump has got somebody who's had his family, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., up there about to lead a commission and really bring out all the investigations. And I know what the investigations are. They're open and shut. We've got the 2003, even ABC News did its job back then, from a 2000 meeting at the head of the CDC facility with the head of it and all of them admitting it was causing autoimmune disorders and causing massive shock and massive allergic responses and massive brain damage, and that they, A, had to cover it up or there'd be a civil war. They actually say a civil insurrection. Millions have been hurt or killed. And B, they had to clean the vaccines up. They didn't. The numbers are getting worse. They give the military experimental vaccines. You can't kill anthrax. Doesn't matter if you radiate it, burn it, whatever. Every spore's got to be chopped in half. They inject the troops with live anthrax. No wonder so many died. This is how crazy it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's a whole other area, how anthrax is literally living, dead, zombie plant spores. By the way, if you just tuned in at the end of that little breakdown about Trump coming out and saying we're going to investigate the vaccines, we're going to put the facts on the table. We're talking about anthrax and thinking about experimental vaccines they use in the military. I was talking to a lot of veterans up in D.C. over the inauguration, and they were all talking about how the huge list of vaccines they were given would make them so sick, but they said they would just gut up for America and do it. And I was pointing out that most of those vaccines were experimental. So under federal law, you can't order the military to take vaccines that are experimental. You can't order citizens to take anything. And that Bioport that produced the anthrax vaccine got caught having live anthrax in it. And so I was going from memory, and I said, listen, anthrax is a type of bacteria that when it goes into its dormant phase, it's similar to the plant family, and this is layman terms, that it folds in on itself, shrivels up into a crystalline state, and they've documented hundreds of thousands of years it can live in the dirt. I'd said 100 to the military guys, because that's well known. And they believe maybe millions. And so one of the big theories is this is the type of family of bacteria that might have seeded the earth if you don't believe in the Christian cosmology. But I went and researched it again when I got home Saturday for like an hour. And, of course, it's just so amazing, the processes of just this family of bacteria that anthrax happens to be a part of, and that they know you can't radiate it, you can't hardly burn it. There's no way to attenuate it where it doesn't make you sick. And that's why they keep coming back with anthrax vaccines, and it keeps killing people, because you're trying to give someone something that can't be killed because it kills itself. When this family of bacteria that anthrax comes from, and again, I'm not a scientist, I'm just giving the basic breakdowns, go research for yourself, starts freezing or starts dying, it goes through this process where it folds in on itself and the bacteria eats itself. It divides, the other side eats the other side, then it implodes and shrinks in to a solid crystalline form that can last millions of years. It's dead. It's dormant. I mean, you talk about suspended animation. So our scientists go, here, put it in a big tank, fry it with radiation, heat it up. Okay, we think these spores are dead. And this will make it where when you get hit by these spores, your body would have learned how to deal with them. There is no dealing with it. And the truth is, it was all a big giant experiment to see what mutations would be caused by injecting humans with this deadly bacteria. Because it's known to manipulate human DNA in survivors. And so all the military that was given this, and I've been told this by high-ups, again, I'm not a scientist, I'm giving you the gestalt of what I was told. You were guinea pigs because the globalists then later at the VA get your blood, and they're testing and watching and looking for certain mutations they want to use in their long-term gene therapy programs, and what they call basically the eternal cell line that was first found in a woman here in the United States back in the 40s. Cancer killed her in a week, and they found that the cancer never dies. You can put a piece of the tumor in a dish, freeze it, or leave it out in the open, and it just sits there and doesn't die. It's a zombie. It doesn't need oxygen. It doesn't need nutrients. It doesn't need anything. So they're obsessed with what I call zombie cell lines. This isn't zombie movies, folks. This is the real deal. And anthrax in the bacteria/plant family, it's in the whole side of the bacteria family that's associated with plants. And again, I'm giving you just a layman's breakdown of this. I've read hundreds of papers on it. And then over on the other side, cancers in humans where the cells are so strong and so powerful, they won't die unless you completely burn them into ashes. The problem is with anthrax is heating it up doesn't do it either until you smash the crystals at a microscopic level. Heating it up doesn't kill it. You have to turn it into ashes. You have to burn it into dust. I didn't mean to segue. It's just the media will make a joke and go, Jones claims the government injected troops with zombie spores. Well, yes, that's what anthrax is it is a desiccated zombie bacteria that can live 1 million years and that reactivates, and we injected the troops with that. Okay, you can't make this up. True stranger than fiction. More on Trump's overthrow of the New World Order. Straight ahead, Trump is on fire. So Trump is going after the corrupt vaccine makers that have been caught poisoning the general public. He's also looking into not giving experimental vaccines to folks in the military. That's part of the whole commission that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to head up. Trump is, again, helped buoy through Trump euphoria, the stock market past 20,000. In fact, if you can pull it up on screen, let's look where it is right now. And so many other just incredibly positive things. Huge factories coming back, being announced every other day. And the media is selling it like Trump is abandoning America. Trump is trying to hurt America. Trump is doing the opposite. The Dow is now at 20,060.85. Trump is doing the opposite. He's saying we're going to rebuild our infrastructure. We're going to stand up for our interest. That doesn't mean the United States won't be involved in the world, but we're not going to pay for multinational corporations to go take over third world countries, exploit their labor, and then ship in their crap to destroy American jobs. We're not going to let foreign multinationals controlling federal regulators steal our jobs by openly setting up regulations that make it impossible to do business in this country unless you're an insider. They've chosen what areas of the country they want to develop, the globalists have. And they've decided that the Midwest and other areas are to be depopulated. That's official. That's what Obama signed into law with his whole Rural Affairs Commission that the Pentagon would head up under Agenda 21 to force integrate city people into the country and basically set up Black Lives Matter type scenarios all over the nation. I mean, this is so incredibly diabolical what's going on. And it was so evil that because you exposed it and other people exposed it, it's now burning up and collapsing in flames so fast. Now, Trump has pointed out that the Vatican has walls. He's pointed out that China has a great wall and a wall on its coastline. He's pointed out that we've paid for walls in Iraq, walls in Afghanistan, walls in Macedonia. The United States has paid for hundreds of walls, well, thousands of smaller walls, but hundreds of walls in different nations along borders. And now under Obama, they've been paying to take down those walls and bring all the jihadis into Europe. And so Trump's pointed out to Mexico, you have a continual wall on your southern border. It never ends. It never stops. You have areas that are accessible by humans on the Guatemala border. You have helicopters. You have armored vehicles. You have military. I've been there. I've seen it. Well, we're going to do the same thing on our border. It's completely out of control and lawless, and there are over 250,000 aggravated felons in the United States from all over Europe, all over Asia, all over Russia, Latin America, Canada, you name it. We don't care what color you are or where you came from. If you are a felon or aggravated felon and you're in this country and you get picked up, you are being put on an airplane and your butt is being flown back to the country that is waiting for you, many times criminal charges. The United States is not a dumping ground for miscreants. Also, we're not going to have the anchor baby status anymore. He's getting ready in the next 2 days to announce that. It's been announced. Where you don't just come here and have a kid free and then everything's paid for and they become a citizen. It's the Chinese that have now outpaced Mexico in doing that. We are a joke. And again, they try to bully us into submission as we go bankrupt. You will pay for it. You will do it. It's the right thing to do. I didn't get to it yesterday, but there was a clip on Tucker Carlson. There's another one out today where the communist on the program is saying, oh, well, America's racist. So that's why you have to let more people in. You have to prove that you're not racist. And Carlson says to him, because they all have the same talking point, these liberal groups, well, if we're totally white supremacists, why then have we become a non-white population in most areas? And it's going to be totally reversed within 20 years. See, Trump and everybody else is just trying to get an American birthright to anybody that comes here who actually wants to be an American. Instead, the globalists want to turn you into a mental patient running around screaming and yelling, you're an effing white male, and calling for socialism and calling for the American dream to be welfare. So you can be completely conditioned and controlled. Trump's also calling for a major investigation into voter fraud, which was organized by the Democrats, so it became election fraud. And I have an entire stack of news I want to cover right now, documenting the fact that Pew Research and ICE and so many other organizations have found that what Trump is saying is actually not even 10% of how bad it is. It's worse than what President Trump is saying. And just like they told us we could never have President Trump, they never told us we could get out of the TPP, they never told us we could get out of Obamacare, they never told us. Yeah, they told us over and over and over again that it was impossible to ever reverse any of this. And 5 days in, it's on fire, and more than 10% of the globalist agenda is already gone. It's happening much quicker than I thought, but it's a blitzkrieg approach of just overwhelming the enemy, Trump hitting him with all of his energy and delegating. You notice Saturday, as soon as Mattis had been confirmed as Secretary of Defense, that a whole bunch of targets across Syria got bombed, big command and control bases that Obama had been protecting, as Trump told the CIA, the gloves are off. Target all Al-Qaeda. Target all ISIS, because what Obama would do was sit there over every little target and, of course, protect them, because he was only basically intimidated by being exposed into targeting any of the targets. So a lot of the top leaders are being killed as we speak. Those stories are up on screen. But remember that we challenged Trump months before the election, the final election. Last year, we said they will engage in fraud. Homeland Security is trying to take over the election. They will bus in the illegals. Project Veritas caught them on tape. Democrats bragged about it in newspapers, saying if you're an illegal alien or you're a criminal or you're whatever, just go out, read the obituary, find out if somebody's dead, and the Democrats will give you a match in the local voter roll and give you a list of people to go out